roughly around August the 1st is when the angel spoke. And by August the 4th, his company had just ceased to exist. No explanation, nothing. The Chinese government had made it illegal for those companies to use foreigners to teach their kids, which sort of made it not important to have those companies as much, just because the parents were doing it not just for them to learn English, because they do learn some English in classes. That's part of their education system. It was getting the pronunciations, little variants of meaning, getting those things from people who spoke it natively. And even when I first got the job, you didn't even have to have a college degree. But I had one already. You started having to prove that, but I already had all of that. I gave it to them when I got hired. It was a independent contractor kind of contract. I still have contract with them. I got something recently, I think, from them about something or another. Like I put it on automatic renew, so I didn't have to think about it and let them renew it. But I haven't been teaching because, well, their pool of students just dwindled, and there were teachers already. I mean, I had a pretty deep, like I said, I was getting 20 at least, 25, 30 a week, but I was trying to up that because we had moved to Colorado and it was more expensive to live, but not impossible. And so my company held on for another, I think November is when they closed that up. The company still exists, but they closed that part up, like, so I'm not sure how they're surviving or whatever. I never like read into how they were trying to make that survive. It's a big Kobe Bryant dream. He's a basketball player, if you didn't know that. And they really rever him over there, and his foundation is still giving money to that education of the children there. But again, they had made a law that said they couldn't use us, and I needed money. So mine held on for a few months more, and then I needed to seek a job. But this happened in August while mine was still, and right before, or the end of July. And it was a progression of things first. I guess I thought I was going through the spiritual thing, the weirdness, because I had told Jessa and Merlin that I wanted to open my empathy as far as I could open it. I was tired of closing myself off. I was tired of feeling afraid to open myself the way I should, fully embodying, the empathy that I knew that flowed through my veins. And then my husband, Cecil, and I were talking about the ritual, the pentagram, of lesser banishing pentagram, and how we used to do it. And we couldn't find the one that he had sent us. The site no longer existed, but we found one. And it wasn't exactly the same. The elements were very much similar, and it was the same idea, but it wasn't exactly the same. And I did it, oddly, having to look at the computer, and we did it. And I didn't think anything else about it after that, for a couple of days, I guess. And then on August 1st, or roughly there around abouts, because it was before the Cecil's company closed, just disappeared overnight. I was panicking, like I said, and I'm sorry, this is the way I do. I'm very rambly, but it's not. They do have points, And what I've decided to do is when I'm going to tell stories, I will just like tape until my heart's content, and then take it apart when I have to put together the pieces closer to each other. Because I usually do get back to the point. So I was panicking, and I hear hello. Now, I heard it like it was outside of me, so I didn't imagine it was someone like a spirit speaking. Not well, one that was in the flesh. Yes, I went into the bedroom thinking I didn't have to work that day, and he didn't have to work that day, or I'd finished it, but I think I didn't have to work, something like that. It was both of our off days together, but he was sleeping because he was exhausted. He had, pushed himself, and he needed some rest. So, I heard hello, so I went in back there to see if he called, and he was snoring, dead asleep. I was like, it wasn't him. And so I was like, maybe maybe I didn't really hear anything. And so I'm there panicking, looking at my computer and just stressing out. And I hear hello again, and I go up and look. I guess maybe checked Cecil 3 times, and then went to the last time, maybe the 4th time. It was at least 5 times that I heard hello before I understood. I looked out the window, just as like maybe it didn't make much sense that it was hello, that somebody would keep saying hello outside. It was dark. It was early morning, because that's when we usually did our work. Because of China's time differential, it was an online job, and we face-to-face teaching of the children. So it was dark outside, so it didn't really make much logical sense why they would be saying hello. But so the last time, I say 5th, it could have been the 8th. I don't know. I was in a sense of panic. But the last time, I realized that it seemed to be coming from the picture that I was looking at on the computer, that I was just meditating on the computer, the picture that I was staring at on the computer, and I'm like, yep, proof. There was part of my mind going, proof you're losing it. Oh, well, okay. But I was always a very curious person, so I looked at the picture and moved a little closer and go, did you say hello? And they said, yeah. It's a group of people, 7 guys. And I was like, okay, I'm losing it, but hey, I'm curious, might as well. This is better than panicking. And I said, but why? And they said, we're angels. We're angels. Now, I told you that we got a message, and I forgot to tell you what it was, because I did say I didn't think much on angels, and I didn't think that I thought they were more like just these energy things that you couldn't commune with, but like not about them actually communicating like that, like a spirit that has once been and has passed on, right? I didn't really, I know that my mom had a concept of my baby sister being an angel after she passed, but I really didn't have that kind of concept. I knew she was a spirit. I believed in reincarnation, so I had no true idea that, or any concept of angel like that. I just didn't, and it was imagery, but I didn't have a real concept of any of it. People with flying wings, neat, beautiful, yeah, beautiful imagery, but I didn't really have a concept of that having meaning outside or personal meaning to me, But the message, before I get on with it, the message that we received in Cali, and I don't remember if it was before. I think it was before, but Lou might remember. before we got the ritual, and I was doing it because didn't do it before I got the ritual. But we went to Balboa Park, and they had these huge concrete garbage cans. It had, I think, like a steel garbage can or something on the inside, but there was a concrete encasing, a big concrete thing, and it had, you would call it, what do you call that? What do they do? Graffiti, because it wasn't set up by the park itself. But what caught our eye about the graffiti was underneath the English words, like that I didn't pay attention to at first because we were kind of far away. Was that there were? I showed you the room book. That someone had used some of these symbols to create a communication there on the the concrete, and we had gotten into the rooms, I guess, around 2003, 4, something like that, and which was a long time after 6 years after I first got the book. But I don't know if this was, it was somewhere in 2007, 2008. So we moved to Cali in 2005, and I have a picture of it. I'll have to share that one day, what I thought it meant. But it was like, through strength, use paid constraint and necessity. It kind of like, I think it kind of looked like the word thanks when you looked at it. Like, in English, if you were trying to make a pattern out of it, because you didn't know what the runes were, if you were trying to make another pattern out of it, it kind of looked like a stylized thanks or something, right? So, so we discussed the meaning of that communication, you know, and the reasons they put one in front of the other, right? And then, the message above it said, if they weren't who you thought they were, would you still believe? A question. When I looked at that and went, I was like, I guess they could be talking about the angels. But again, I didn't really have much of a concept of, like, the angels, right? I didn't really have much of a concept of the angels. They were energy forms, and I didn't really have much of a concept of that, because again, I thought of the gods, the angels, it's just like energy you could make, you could bring by certain acts that you could experience and enjoy, right? That you could help, with your daily life or whatever. I didn't really think of it of like individual beings that could speak. And then they spoke, and I said, okay, so I don't have much of a concept to you. The question could have been, do you believe in angels? And I probably said, not in any real fundamental way, right? Not in any real fundamental way. But they spoke, and then they said they were angels. And I took a moment, and I looked at the individuals that were on the page that the communication was coming through. And I thought about everything I knew about those individual lives, which was a whole lot, but it was all good. And I said, okay, well, I buy that, but why are you telling me? And there was some stuff in there that I don't care to discuss. I don't know how to present that yet. But there was one thing that they did say that I was the whys of them, why they talked to me. Because I was like, but why are you telling me? Okay, I buy that, but why are you telling me? Was my question back to them. I bought it. Okay, I get it, but why come to me? Because, again, I wasn't interested in the whole crossing over thing, and I didn't think of them as ghosts. It was very obvious it's something different than that, but why are you telling me? And they told me the most bizarre thing that made me, like, I started going playing my video game again because I did it even. It threw me for a loop. And they said to me, "You're a sex magic angel." Wait. So I think I shut that computer. Just shut it. I didn't shut the image. Just shut the computer because I'm fucking way too fucking curious to not follow through with that. But I was thrown for a fucking loop. So I started playing the video game at the time. They're meditative to me. It's numbers changing over one thing becoming another, and then trying to keep the stores of the meats that are uncooked and the processes, grunt work. But I found it meditative watching the numbers change, seeing the stores build, that sort of thing. And then I got to where I actually enjoyed, trying to kill the bears when they were trying to kill you, and then the zombies and stuff. But it really, for me, was more about collecting the items and trying to build the sediment. And I never really got very far, because I'm the type that'll start a game over if I stop playing it for a little while, and I'm not faithful. Like I said, I use it to meditate, and when I'm done, the intense meditation sessions of whatever my spirit's trying to learn, I go on, and then I assess it, and then I figure out what I've learned, So, and because I know that I'm about to stop playing Game Jag when I start actually dreaming about playing the game, but it's not being likened to playing the game. There's other information coming through about the meanings. Then I know that I've hit that place of zen with the game, and I'm about to stop playing games for a little while, because I've achieved what I needed to, and now it's time to assess and create and do things with that information. So I was like, what? Yeah, no. Okay. So I shut the computer, and I started playing on my other computer, the video game I was playing. I don't know how long it was, but eventually I opened it again. My husband was still asleep. Cecil was still asleep. And I was like, okay, what do you mean about that? And they said, by that, and they said, well, you need to turn on your favorite music video. There yet, yeah. And I'm into a lot of K-pop and stuff. And I was like, okay, but what's that gonna do? Just do it, they said. And I was like, okay. And I turned on the television, and I had seen this stuff numerous times alone with my husband. And it was just people dancing and singing. Good beat. Great things. But my body started orgasming. And that freaked me the ever-loving fuck out, because I had no control over it. The beats, and I don't think at the time I had been actually listening to anything, except for maybe I was listening to one of my YouTubers play video games or talk about plants or something. But I probably wasn't listening to anything much when I played, just talking to myself, which I always did. And I was upset, of course. I don't know if I don't remember if I stopped talking to them for a minute. I'm like, okay, this is a new thing. And Michael, in particular, said that it was a permanent change, that my metabolism had boosted, and that too was a permanent change, which I wasn't used to having much metabolism unless I was exercising. I'm 4'10" and a half. I'm a little bit of nothing. So, I could get real big when I was trying to protect myself empathetically. from, it's not about the fat itself. It's about the actual act. I discovered that. Like, to cover my empathy, it wasn't like getting a layer of fat and you didn't feel things. When you're so full, you kind of get numb to everything except for what you feel, and the rest is sort of a hum on the outside. So, yeah, like it leads to a lifetime of flip flopping and yo-yo stuff, because every decade I've wanted to get healthy and be healthy and enjoy the yoga and enjoy myself as the healthy version of me. And I realized that I couldn't bring myself into an environment where people are focused on uh, death and anger and pain and all of that. I needed to be able to at least go to a place where I was welcome. There were just as many people focused on like creativity and love for life and like the zeal of enjoying the life they've been given, because I was not going to think that life was meant to be miserable. So anyway, that was a shock. But of course, curious me, I'm going to continue the conversation, especially now that my body was doing what it did. And, I guess a Christian church would have me believe they were manipulating me, but no. No, because it wasn't about like sex, not this condition. I mean, it is portrayed, one of its main symptoms is sexual arousal. But for me, I've discovered it's not really, that's the main symptom. It is the symptom that tells you that's what you have. But it's overall, you're overstimulated. I have never had the beat of it, because focusing, I used to be very, very, very good at multitasking and remembering this and that. I was a waitress. I was a star waitress at one of our higher end restaurants in the small area that we're from. Not my small hometown, but the small area that we're from, the bigger city there. I was a waitress there, and I was making money hand over fist. But you have to be able to multitask and remember things, remember orders, remember people. You had to remember a lot, and I was good at it. I can't do that anymore. I have had the roughest time at Starbucks. I can't do things like that. Now, in my creativity, I can juggle things. They mean something to me, it matters. But in these higher situations where it's just things people want, but it doesn't matter a whole lot, I can't focus. And then the more mess and I mean literal mess, like chaos in my creative life, chaos is part of it, because we have notes all over around and everything, but it's always going to be something like here. We have 1 hour. Oh, this is some Korean that we've been learning. And he's probably incorporating into a new song. And this is a list of our songs, like Over, Miss America, Chaos Agents. That one I can't read because his handwriting. We won't go into that. But I can usually decipher it. But that one I'm not going to try. It looks like turkey or something. And I know that's not right. Night Whirl, Space Odyssey. It's just a list. I think Space Odyssey is a David Bowie cover. We do some, like Jimin's Who is on here. And we do some covers as well. We like covers, but we do mostly our own material. We did have a Elton John cover band because we love so much of his music that we learned so much of it. We probably have that for some of the Korean bands if we understood the Korean more and how to do it. So that's one of our goals right now, is to take on Korean. And I'm actually know that I'm good at languages. I didn't when I went to college, but I took, you know, when you're first starting out or whatever, you're getting some of your stuff for the degree itself taken care of while you're trying to figure out what you want to do or what you want to explore. So I knew that we had to either have a computer science or a language. And what I was intending to do, I figured out that I was a little too sensitive for that at the time. But what I intended to do would have taken the computer science. But before I even explored that and had my talk with the counselor or whatever, you know, I had had my first semester and I had discovered Italian. I was like, I think I want to take Italian for that. I've had a little Spanish. I think I want to take Italian. So Cecil took it with me. So we took Italian, and I loved it, and I was good at it. Like, I just was good at it. And I would have to say the Spanish degree that I got, I wasn't as good at the Spanish. But it was because that, as much as I liked it, I didn't love it as much as I did the Italian. But they didn't have a degree in Italian, or I would have had the degree in Italian instead. You know, I was getting 107 was on some of my tests. There was a couple that taught all of the classes, and they were married. It was Maurizio and Barbara Godorecci, and I loved them. And we got, I called them the espresso couple because she would basically stand the whole time, walking back and forth, you know, meeting eyes, you know, like really connecting with the students. And it wasn't a huge class, you know. So she was really connecting with the students, especially the more we got up into the upper, because I have a minor in that, in the upper classes of Italian, the less students. But she would do that, so she was very active over, like, throughout the classroom, you know, moving around. And sometimes the Maurizio was like that, but if he was sitting down, his knees under the desk would just get to going back and forth, all of this mental energy that he's putting into his knees while he's trying to pull out more information about not the Italian behind it, but this was more like he was very philosophical. So he was trying to pull out more of the philosophical information that the author themselves were. So he was, for me, it felt like he was teaching as much philosophy as he was Italian, because it was Italian literature. So we adored that couple. They were great. I even took some Greek because I like Attic Greek, the Greek that the Bible was supposed to be written in, and I took 2 semesters of that. Did I ever get around to reading the Bible and that? No, I'm more chaos than that. But our newest goal is to actually take on Korean. We find that the Southern Korean, the K-pop music, we find a lot of very positive messages, or very, very beautiful, if you like, you know, fantastical elements and mystery and like powers and stuff like that. They've got themes like that too, all throughout it, and I think it's fantastically done, you know. So, you know, I don't care. I go where my music heart goes. I was raised singing gospel. I've spent some time in the hair bands, what we call back then hair bands in the 80s, that Leppard, Poison, whatnot, like Bob Dylan, Neil Young, David Bowie, Elton John, exploring just whatever we liked, it, you know. Like Alanis Morissette, I tried, I'm trying to remember her name right now. She was just coming out, I think, in my college years, with like Pies de Caldos. I can't remember her name. Shakira. I think, you know, I got into her trying to get some, like, if I can get some Spanish music in me, then I'll be more prone to wanting to do the Spanish. I didn't find that love at that time for the Spanish music. Not enough to immerse myself in it. But I have the K-pop. There's something about the Korean. First of all, when you're writing it, it feels like you're writing a spell, just like with the Greek. Like you're doing symbols. I mean, sure, you can write in romanization, but what attracts me most to the writing in it is those symbols, getting those symbols, and that's just my thing. It feels witchy. It feels, you know, I don't know. I like it. It feels ancient and witchy and stuff, and it draws me a little bit more. I use the runes, and I made my own for many times, but they would melt together, and the methods I was using weren't that good. And I'm not a stone carver, so I have some stone ones, and I was losing all of them. But these I finally had for years. Always losing one or two of them somehow, and but these I've had for years. Like, I think one of my that my room today was Penguin Strength Necessity, maybe. I don't remember. It's not these. But I don't remember fully whether that was or not, because sometimes I will get one day mixed up with the other. But I just do what I do, because that's how I live my life. And I've kind of, as a seeker, been like that. I really didn't think too much. It was like, it's none of my business what people think about me. That's kind of the tack that I took. But I also didn't open up very fully about like my spiritual life. I mean, I had a few friends that I could, but it wasn't like a general topic of conversation. Not my spiritual life. Possibilities where we did surround ourselves with people who do that, but like not my in particular spiritual life. The fact that spirit communicated all of that, I kept that personal, again, because what was prevalent through is that there were some people who misled people just for their own motivations, just like with the Christian church, so with anything like that. So I was like, I don't know who to trust in this, so I want to find a spirit that can teach me. Someone who doesn't have something to gain. And no, I didn't go out seeking spirits or try to call them. Like when Merlin spoke to me, I believed in spirit guides and stuff, but when Merlin spoke to me, it was not like that. I wasn't like, this is going to be my spirit guide. It was just a book. Mostly written in a fiction form. And then there was some information about what they knew about the religion. Like they didn't really write anything down. That it was there were paths of learning, and for me, that I ended up deciding that it wasn't really about religion, and it wasn't even really about the gods. Though you could use that energy of those times, and the gods to, or the archetypes of the gods to help you. But I thought more of it as like a learning system, because you could be in it 30 years before you felt like you were a Jewett or knew enough to feel like that you could call yourself that. Yeah. So, so to me, it wasn't like a religion. It was more like a path of learning. Yeah, they use gods and goddesses, but those archetypes are things that are synonymous with, or especially were things were synonymous with the times that they were using them. There are other archetypes you can use. You can find where one mixes with the other. That Jesus, that certain groups of Vikings thought that Odin was Jesus, so that Jesus was Odin. That was their god. That it was easy for them to, okay, yeah, that was Odin. It was like, because I ran across the Viking because I had a past life. I had to go through some stuff, and that's a long story. But first, I want to tell you the point was is that I told the point. Yeah, there is no point. It's just a lot of living. But what I was gonna get across was that when I considered talking to them because I thought that they would probably leave or whatever, and they're like, no, 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 we're probably not. Like, I was like, okay, then if I'm going to discuss something as intimate as what my body's doing in the sex, I need you to be my friends. So we went about talking about me mostly, and me spending time with them, and getting to know each of the angels that were represented there, and it on a personal spiritual basis. And I was like, when I was like, but you're coming through these images, and they're like, yeah, there are emissaries. They're pieces of us. They could have chosen any one of a piece of them to have come through me too, but these were the ones that were readily available, and they were speaking to me. And so I was like, okay, so you're gonna have to be my friend. So we just started talking, mostly, of course, about me. I mean, because that I was talking to angels. What much I did get visions about realms. Not well. I did get visions about the light too, but like the visions were the realms in between, and things that are occurring simultaneously, or simultaneously with something else in lifetime in the past. The things that are happening in some of these lower angelic realms, and I don't know how many. You can suppose how many if you want, but there's no way to go at this point except through here to go into those upper realms. You can energetically, but like to know what they look like or what they contain. I am of the class that believe that the imagination is really, really powerful. So everything that's been imagined hard enough, everything that's been imagined is real in some place. And you can get caught up in confusion if you go playing in those realms, like, and not knowing what you were doing, or not having a goal in mind, or not at the very least communicating with something while you're there that is your focus, because there's some wild stuff you can see up in those realms. But I wasn't like, I didn't say, okay, now I'm going to upper realms. I'd be talking and I would see a vision, and then we would discuss what that vision meant. Sometimes I happened to mention that I knew that I had 7 lifetimes in this cycle. That doesn't mean that's all my angel has ever had, but it's in this cycle of lives to learn whatever it is that we were trying to, some of that I do know, and we've achieved a lot of it. But it's not like they stop feeling and thinking. New goals for me have been added because of what I chose. Now, even if I've completed every aspect of what I had intended to come down here, I've foreseen that I'm going to not have a short life, so that I can continue to collect the pieces of me that I've left. I know that you have to shed what is no longer to your nature, but people shed things that are to their nature, or they forget things, and instead of dealing with them, they instead of dealing with them, they hide them, and it becomes back to fester as some sickness or something. And when I lost my job, it threw me into a chaos of anorexia. It was a disease. I don't know if they term it disease or call it, what do they call it, disorder or disease, whatever. But it's stress related. And after losing my job, and then I was already doing this new thing, and it was already cutting my hunger because it's busting my fats, telling my body that it's full. Um, I went into about a no control over my job now, no control over my body, and now I'm having to go back into into the job situation, having this new thing with my body because like I said, it's not about sex. I mean, that's one of the main the main symptom, but I would say that I've discovered it's not really about sex, it's about stimulation, being overstimulated. But when I but it also has like these other elements, like you can use it as a guide that what your body needs. Like my body would try to do it to heal me because I always use sex with my husband to heal my headaches and stuff like that. But then there was these elements of I realized how strange it was, and that it really wasn't about the disorder itself. That I don't like calling it disorder. That's not what they called it. They called it a power. The disturbing, not disturbing, the strange aspect of this is a physiological thing. Your body has changed. But, when I realized that it wasn't really just about desire like that, like physical desire, it was just about you're so stimulated that any desire could cause it. Any desire being fulfilled could cause it. Like, when I realized how strange it was, there's two things. Endorphins. I was doing yoga and Pilates and dancing, and I would get, well, especially I noticed it with, not as much with the dancing because, like, the flow is different with dancing. But when I was doing the yoga, which is slower, and then the Pilates, which is not as slow as yoga, but it is slower than a lot of the dancing I was doing. Whenever I would get into a state where I actually acknowledged the endorphins, I would orgasm. I thought I was never going to be able to, and I still do, but I'm not shocked by it, so I'm not moaning or whatever. But and like when I eat, like I was eating a piece of orange, and as soon as the juice to the orange went down my throat, and I felt this coolness, my body orgasmed, and I'm like, well, I guess it does it for food too. And it's sort of anything. I mean, it will during negative times too. Well, it doesn't for me anymore because I think I just sort of changed that to where my body shook instead of trying to orgasm because it was just too much, and my body just. And I don't really go through that either. I don't know, it might if I have a highly intense moment of panic, but I don't put myself through those. Whenever I start feeling that little bit of what they call a catastrophic sense, I wasn't as good at it back then because I didn't know about the catastrophic sense in this order or the illness or whatever the science would call it within what was going on in my body, because it can cause symptoms that are like ADHD. I only read the description, but it's like ADHD, and I know that's what I'm experiencing. And it's like panic attacks, which I'd never had. My baby sister had them. I knew what they were, but I'd never had them because I have more control over my emotions than that. I'm a I chose to be happy all my life. I liked the feeling, so I kept going with it. But that doesn't mean I didn't experience sadness. You wouldn't really know what happiness was if you didn't kind of have that balance of knowing what sadness is, and that that's not happiness. This is right. But I realized it's for me when I'm the flowing the most and my body's got a mind of its own the most is when I'm excited about life. So I don't see it as a negative. I mean, I did find it later, so I found about 6 months into or so. I don't really know time, but it was some time into it. I'd been going through it for a while, 6 months, a year, and then I saw a video that said that just the little title, women, 1 in 100 might experiencing orgasming on their own. Their body just doing it at least once in their life, and and like, so I ignored the video at first because I was too busy trying to cure anorexia, or at least put into remission what we were excuse me, I'll have to cut that out. What we were trying to do was see if I told them how many lives that I had lived, and it wasn't like they said, well, we're going to go back into those lives. As I was talking to them, keeping myself calm, trying to figure out this thing, I would see visions. I'd just get visions. Like, I'd be talking to them about one life, and I'd see something. And especially the stuff that, sorry, I put my hand over my mouth. I would see stuff, like, while I was talking to them about past life, especially the stuff that I said, like we would be talking, and they could see what I see, like experience it through me. And we'd be talking, and I would see something as I was telling them something. Now, sometimes I would just go right into it. It's like, I wonder what that means. But sometimes I would go, what? Like I didn't see anything. And Malkuth, who's like really big in the psychic vision sense, I don't know how to explain it without trying to go into what I've discovered about orders and all kinds of weird stuff that will eventually become fiction books. I mean, like, to be honest, I'm not trying to create a religion. I'm trying to live my life. And a lot of this, the stuff that I know, just came about while we were trying to figure out how to keep me from starving myself to death, to be honest. So I would talk to him a little, and if I get a vision, we would go into it. Malkuth, especially the visionary, would go, okay, because they have specialties. Eventually they all learn everything, but they have specialties. So so it would be like, what did you see? And I would be like, what? And Malkuth would be like, you saw something. I saw it too. I just don't know what it was. And I would stop avoiding it, and we'd go into it, because they're like, look, it might be where the anorexia is based, where you built up this need to starve yourself. So we kept going through these things. It wasn't like, we're going to go through your past lives. It was just in my talking. When I felt the need to talk about that life, that's what we did. What I knew of that life. And I started knowing more and more of each of the lives. Now, I knew for a long time that it was a cycle of 7. I was under a mistaken impression about a little bit of it, or how it worked, but that it was a cycle of 7. And but I told my husband, I'm like, beyond the surface stuff I've already just kind of discovered just through remembering, I don't really need it unless it's necessary. And I feel like if it's supposed to be spiritually something I need, it'll just come to me. I don't need this whole regression thing. There's too many chances for people to lead you into whatever they feel you might be going through, rather than you discovering on your own what's happening. So I was like, well, I don't need it, beyond that. I can make crap up, and have fun, But, like, I started getting more and more details about all my life as we were just discussing that. And get visions, and, I'm friends with my past life self. I literally, like, talk to them. I feel like sometimes I'll feel disgruntled, and it'll feel like it's coming from that past, and I'll go, what's wrong, April? What's wrong, Dawn? What's up? How can we make this better? Because I don't like feeling this way. So throughout that whole experience, I started becoming friends with all the pieces of myself and only wanting the best for them. And they still live. It's not like they don't go anywhere. They're their own individual being, and they still learn. I'm just certain of it. They still grow. They still love. They love me, and I love them. And I'm glad that I had the chance to be them, so that I could learn and grow. So that I could be me now. Me now, Angie Bug. I have gone by a few. I'm like changed my name, not literally, but my name is Angela Dawn, and I've gone by. Well, when I was a child, it was Angie Bug, my nickname, and then of course, my parents never really, my mom especially, and sometimes my sister never quit really calling me Angie Bug. But when I went into high school, I wanted to go by Angela, so I started going by Angela, and I was going by Angela, and then sometimes little random nicknames like Gina or something at work, until I met Cecil. And then when Cecil and I went to college, his middle name is Lewis, and we decided that we would go to college and go by our middle names. So I was Dawn, because it's like a way of recreating yourself and finding out another part of yourself. So I was Dawn, he was Lewis, and we were that for a while. And then I went back to Angela after we moved back, and then to Georgia, and closer to our families, who were used to calling me Angela or Angie. And then recently, while I was still going through some of the harder parts, but I decided that Angela seemed a little cold to me for some reason, just using that for me. That was someone who felt the need to protect herself from others, and I didn't want to do that anymore. I didn't want to layer on fat to protect myself from other people's emotions. I wanted to be aware that they were out there and still not knocked off my center. And so, Angie Bug, I thought, wow, that's fun-loving. It also encompasses the curiosity that I have and everything that I intend to put out. Angie Bug loved purely. Angie Bug had an imagination. Angie Bug wasn't bound by time and space. We had this log that we called our Hawaii log when, I guess maybe I was 3 or 4, my sister was 5, and my brother was 6, And we would get up on this log, this broken log, and I don't really know how big it was because we were little, but it was big enough for 3 sets of small feet. And we'd get it, and we would do the little hula dance, And we would sing, I want to go Hawaii, I want to go to Hawaii, I want to go to Hawaii. Now, why we were so fascinated by that log, I don't know, but it became a constant. It wasn't just once. It was many times. Now, so I don't know, maybe we did go somewhere. Maybe we did go somewhere that I don't remember that was built by the 3 of us. I have no idea, but we were fascinated with that log for a little while. And so fascinated that I remember it, that it's still here in my head. Well, I think I'll stop the recording for a little bit. I don't know if I'll get back to this tonight or not. It's almost 2 hours worth of the project. Thank you for the idea for dear Cortnie. My letters to Cortnie. Well, if the church fathers could do it, I can do it. Bye. Love you guys.